After a terrifying night for Kyiv, when Ukrainian air defense failed to shoot down a single Russian ballistic missile, news emerged that is even more shocking. At a meeting in the White House last week, Donald Trump personally rejected Volodymyr Zelensky's request to provide Ukraine with hundreds of additional interceptor missiles for the Patriot systems. The reason for the refusal is the very shortage that we discussed in the previous episode. Trump referred to the lack of these missiles in American warehouses and stated that the United States itself needs them to protect facilities in the Middle East and in the Persian Gulf countries amid the war with Iran. And this refusal did not happen in a vacuum. It coincided with the night when a Russian missile attack on Kyiv cost Ukraine dearly. Literally, not a single ballistic missile was shot down. At the same time, Zelensky admitted honestly that this year the supply of air defense missiles from our partners has dropped several-fold compared to last year. Meanwhile, Russia has begun to massively destroy warehouses with goods from major marketplaces in Ukraine and is clearly ready to create a real humanitarian crisis. On the other hand, more and more sources are saying that negotiations on granting a license to produce Patriot missiles in Ukraine are ongoing. Or, at the initial stage, Germany itself will produce the missiles for Ukraine. In general, let's figure out this complicated issue together. My name is Alexei Pechi, let's get started. But before we begin, I ask you to subscribe to this YouTube channel right now. Click on the subscribe button. Check right now if you are personally subscribed. We are moving towards the 300,000 subscriber mark, so I will be grateful for each of your subscriptions. So, today the Financial Times shocked everyone with details about how Trump once again abandoned Ukraine. On July 29, during his visit to Washington, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, asked Donald Trump to provide Ukraine with the so-called winter package of Patriot interceptor missiles. That is, in advance before the onset of cold weather, when Russian strikes on the energy sector traditionally intensify. Zelensky asked for 300 missiles, 100 missiles for each month of winter. And today, by the way, Ukrainian military expert and communications specialist Serhiy Flash Beskresnov stated that the Russian army is capable of producing and using for strikes on Ukraine about 100 ballistic missiles per month. So, in general, Ukraine's request was justified. That they need 300 missiles for the winter for a reason, they're not just asking for this number without purpose. And according to the Financial Times, it was indeed about 300 additional interceptor missiles. And Trump responded to this with a refusal, explaining it by a shortage caused by the military campaign against Iran. He says that American stockpiles are needed to protect their own facilities and allies in the Persian Gulf. At the same time, as Reuters clarifies, citing 4 sources familiar with the course of the discussions, the dialogue about transferring the license for the independent production of Patriot missiles in Ukraine has not been halted. Negotiations are ongoing, but the actual transfer of ready-made missiles here and now is off the table. And here, an important detail came up. It turned out that Ukraine had requested a license to produce missiles for the Patriot system back during Joe Biden's administration. So, this isn't some new spur-of-the-moment idea, no. This is an issue that the Ukrainian side has been raising for years now, and every time it runs into the same wall. American manufacturers are not ready to share such sensitive technology even with their allies. But let's be honest, if this ill-fated license had been issued under Joe Biden, by now Ukraine would already be actually producing Patriot interceptor missiles itself. And there would be no need to go and beg Donald Trump to give us these missiles. I just stand there. It's hot.
Thank you. To be continued. be continued. Subtitles created by Dima Torzak.
"300, 400. I'm just standing here, damn it. I'm hot, I'm burning, damn it."
But meanwhile, on the night of August 5th, Russian forces carried out a massive strike on Kyiv and the Kyiv region for the third time in a week. As a result of the attack in Kyiv, one person was killed and another 24 were injured. In the Obolonsky district, a residential high-rise building was hit, causing a fire. Warehouses, an office building, and non-residential structures were also burning. A warehouse caught fire and missile fragments fell near a residential building in the Desnyansky district of the capital. In the Holosivsky district, a private house was partially destroyed and there was an ammonia leak due to a strike on a non-residential building. Sadly, people were trapped under rubble. In the Kyiv region, 14 people were killed and 27 were injured as a result of the strikes. The city of Brovary and several villages were attacked, where large-scale fires broke out at logistics and warehouse complexes, manufacturing enterprises, commercial and other facilities. Logistics complexes in the Bukansky district and enterprises in the village of Kalinivka also caught fire. Before that, let me remind you, Russia launched a massive ballistic missile strike on Kyiv and the Kyiv region on the night of August 1st. At that time, 9 people were killed and more than 30 were injured. 13 residential apartment buildings were damaged. 4 private houses, administrative and non-residential buildings, a film studio, 1 store, and vehicles. A little earlier, on July 30th, as a result of a Russian missile strike in Kyiv, 1 person was killed and 2 others were injured. In the Kyiv region, 5 people were injured. Also on the same day, Lviv and the village of Radoshna in the Dnipropetrovsk region were attacked. 5 people were killed in the latter. It was 1 family, including children. And here, as you can imagine, what's telling, however strange it may sound, is the math behind the air defense missile shortage itself. For example, on the night of August 1st, the Ukrainian air defense system shot down 90% of the launched drones. But regarding ballistic missiles, it's a total failure. On the night of August 1st and on the night of August 5th, unfortunately, the Ukrainian air defense did not shoot down a single ballistic missile, not a single one. And here I just want to remind you of the thoughtlessness of Donald Trump himself, who put Ukraine in this situation. To give you a sense of the scale of the problem, in the first days of the escalation of the conflict with Iran, at the beginning of March, the US and its partners used up hundreds of THAAD interceptors and officially more than 800 Patriot interceptors. Although the US produces just over 600 PAC-3 missiles in a year. During the same period, the US transferred about 90 decommissioned Israeli PAC-2 interceptors to Ukraine, meaning these are outdated missiles. At the same time, military advisor Sergei Beskresnov, known by the call sign Flash, explained how many ballistic missiles Russia is physically able to launch at Ukraine each month. He showed the scale of the problem not just on individual nights, but throughout the entire war over time. And his assessment confirms that the current shelling fits into a steadily growing trend of using ballistic missiles specifically. The Russians realized they must use ballistic missiles, since Ukraine unfortunately can't defend against them. According to Flash, Russia can launch about 100 ballistic missiles at Ukraine per month. It's not just residential areas that are affected. Last night, major civilian facilities were hit, including warehouses belonging to Epicenter, Nova Poshta, and Rosetka. Retailers have had their warehouses and production facilities destroyed, and as we can see, Russia has started targeting warehouses and logistics specifically. And as Flash says, quote, "Right now, the Russians don't care what they attack. They're striking warehouses with food and construction materials, retail stores, and production facilities. And unfortunately, these attacks will continue. So, friends, I think it's already obvious that all logistics routes in Ukraine need to be restructured. That means there shouldn't be any large warehouses. Everything needs to be spread out as much as possible. This is already a matter of survival. Well, it would seem just give Ukraine a license to produce the missile, and it will produce these Patriot interceptor missiles itself. But it's not that simple. Today, the media revealed details of the discussion about setting up production of PAC-3 missiles directly on Ukrainian territory. So, in parallel with the refusal to provide ready-made missiles here and now, talks are continuing about how Ukraine could eventually produce them itself. According to Reuters, the options currently under consideration include producing individual components of Patriot missiles in Ukraine, with the final assembly of the completed missile taking place in Germany. The second option is for Ukraine to join the existing US-European program for producing Patriot interceptor missiles, or to give Kyiv the opportunity to produce a cheaper version of the PAC-3 missile. This is what I talked about in previous episodes. Okay, you don't want to share the cutting-edge technology behind the PAC-3, the most advanced missile, then give the so-called export version. That is, it's a bit cheaper, a bit simpler, but nevertheless, it can also handle ballistic targets. And a representative of the Trump administration also stated that the US is studying several potential areas of future cooperation in the defense industry with Ukraine, noting that any agreement must take into account the protection of American technologies. According to sources, the most realistic option is still considered to be the production of only components in Ukraine, with their final assembly into a finished missile taking place in Germany. At the same time, even if an agreement is reached, Ukraine will not be able to receive new missiles in the near future. According to sources, launching new production lines usually takes at least 3 years after signing a licensing agreement. So this is a story for the very distant future, but as you can imagine, missiles are needed today. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so financially by donating through the links and details in the description of this video. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.